want to both thank you. I'm following on the heels of some rather incredible speakers that have been at Expo this year, and it reminds me somehow of a speech that Orville Wright gave to the National Press Club many years ago. He was expected to give a nice, long speech about the progress of aviation in 1922. And he got up before this massive crowd, and he said, "You know, parrots are the best of all talking birds, but they don't fly worth a damn." And with that, he sat down. Sometimes that's what I feel like doing. Thank you for being here. As many of you know, I did retire from TWA in 1998 when TWA was still a world-class airline. And I'm going to start off by just telling a few little stories from the airline days. And any of you who have flown into San Francisco can probably relate to this. They have two very close parallel runways. And when the weather is good, we fly visual approaches parallel to one another. In fact, when you're flying the big jets, you're so close to one another when flying these two parallel approaches that your wingtips are almost touching. And I was about a half a mile from touchdown on runway 28 right at San Francisco, and I looked to the left, and there was this DC-10. And the co-pilot on the right of that airplane was looking at me, and I saw him pick up the mic, and he says, "Would you pass the gray poop hole?" And it really happened. The center always likes to get into the act, too. Every once in a while, you hear someone pick up the mic and request a time check. And the center says, "Well, who's calling?" And the guy will say, "Well, what do you care?" And the guy will say, "Well, if it's TWA, we'll say it's 16:02. And if it's American, we'll say it's 4:02 p.m. If it's United Airline, we'll say the big hand is on the 12. And if it's Delta, we'll tell them it's Tuesday." I got into the airline business. We still had a few navigators left, and I recall this one navigator in the middle of the night. We're on our way across the Pacific Ocean. His job is to hand the captain a little slip every time a course correction is required. He would take a celestial observation, jot down the heading change, hand the note to the captain. And I remember this one navigator handing the note to the captain. The captain looks at it and says, "Turn left 1 degree. Captain says, "Come on, don't bother me with 1 degree heading changes. When you got something significant, let me know." Navigator went back to his station. About 10 minutes later, he hands the captain a note. "Okay, Skipper, here's one that is more to your liking." It said, "Turn left 7 degrees. Captain said, "That's more like it." Navigator handed him another note and said, "Turn right 6 degrees. One of my favorite times was when we had FAA inspectors riding on board the flight. And of course, every time you're supposed to level off at an altitude, the co-pilot is supposed to call out to the captain, 16 for 17. It's an 1,000-foot notice. And a co-pilot on one of my flights, as we were leveling off at 17,000 feet, the co-pilot said 1 to go. We all know what that means. We have 1,000 feet left in our climb before we have to level off. There was an FAA inspector sitting behind me. We leveled off at 17,000 feet. And the FAA inspector said to the co-pilot, "You know, you're not supposed to say 1 to go. You're supposed to say 16 for 17. Co-pilot goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I went, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And we accepted the criticism. Next thing you know, we're cleared up to flight level 350. And we're climbing up. And as we pass through 340, on the way to 350, the co-pilot says, "Skipper, out of 16 for 17. What could he say? During my days of flying for TWA, I've had the opportunity to fly pretty much all around the world, and I've culled a selection of slides that you might enjoy. and I hope that I can show them to you now. Griff, if you would put on the lights, and we hope all goes as practiced. Are there lights over there? Is the machine on, Griff? Oh, okay. Now, that's what happens when my kid gets a clearance he doesn't like. That's Brian, and since you are a captive audience, you're going to have to see pictures of my family as well. That's Brian. He's now a captain for American Airlines. Can we elevate that a little bit? No wonder the kid's crying. He doesn't look like that anymore. We can't go much higher because if we do, then the vertical shots are going to go off the screen. So that's about where we're going to have to hold it. I want to show you what I consider to be the most beautiful airport in the world, and that's Hana on the island of Hawaii. And it's beautiful because there's no control tower as well. And if you ever want to fly into Hana, the thing you have to do is visit the Lindbergh grave, which is behind a small little church, not too many miles outside of Hana. And it certainly appeared that Lindbergh wanted to be as isolated in death as he was in life. It's not an easy place to get to. In New Zealand, I came across this mountain. It's called Mount Wakawera, that literally was split open by an earthquake. And they have an interesting control tower situation down in Wellington. There's so little real estate available on the airport, and there's no place where they can put a control tower. So on the sides of the hills that overlook the airport, which is the neighborhood to the airport, they built a tower between the houses. It's really kind of interesting to have a tower for a neighbor. But it does give the controllers a rather good view of the airport, which lies off to your left as you're looking at it. Altimeter reads 8,800 feet, right? Or is it 1,200 feet below sea level? It, in fact, is 1,220 feet below sea level. If you look at the really thin big hand to the left of the zero, it'll tell you that this shot could only have been taken at the Dead Sea Airport in Israel. And there's a picture of an airplane at the Dead Sea Airport. In the background is the Dead Sea and the Judean hills behind that. And this is really kind of fun, taking off in a naturally aspirated airplane with more than 31 inches of manifold pressure. But these airplanes really do get up and go. That airplane, that Super Cub, participated in the 1948 War of Independence. From that, they threw out rocks and hand grenades and empty bottles of seltzer water and all kinds of things, and helped to win that War of Independence. And here's a view of the Wailing Wall, aerial view in Jerusalem. This is a picture of me and King Hussein, taken in 1995 during what was called Operation Peace Flight, where I was fortunate enough to fly 35 airplanes with 135 Israelis, Jordanians, and Americans from Jerusalem to Amman, Jordan. And the king was quite a guy. We were sitting in this little anteroom there, and he said to me, Barry, is there anything I can do for you while you're here? And you know what he asked a king for? And the only thing I could think of, strangely enough, is I thought, wouldn't it be neat to have a Jordanian pilot's license? I already had an Israeli pilot's license, and I'd be the only one to have both, probably. So I asked the king if I could get a Jordanian pilot's license, and he said, of course you may. And I said, really? And he said, I am the king. Before I was allowed to make that peace flight between Jerusalem and Amman, I had to go through all kinds of jumping through hoops to arrange to do this. And one day, after everything had been arranged, and it's about a week before departure, I get a phone call in Los Angeles at about 5 o'clock in the morning. And it's from a faraway place. And I hear a lady's voice, "Captain Schiff?" I said, "Well, yeah." And she said, "One moment for Mr. Rabin." And I said, "Rabin, Yitzhak Rabin." "Hello, Barry?" I said, "Yes." He says, "I understand you're going to fly from Jerusalem to Amman, Jordan." And I said, well, yeah. He says, "Don't you think you should ask me?" In all of the commotion, I had forgotten to ask the Prime Minister of Israel if we could make this trip. I said, "Oh my God, I can't tell you how apologetic I am and how embarrassed I feel. I'll send off a formal letter right away." He says, No, it's okay. Go ahead. Have a good time." He just, wanted to let me know that I should have done that. King Hussein was, in his later years, a true soldier of peace. I would like very much to play for you a very small portion of a videotape. It's a part of a speech that he gave to us when we arrived in Amman. Griff, if you could play that first clip, please.